All right, guys, welcome into today's video where we're going to be discussing the realities and the cost of what it takes to become a content creator. For anyone who's new to the channel, my name's Fareed. Been doing YouTube for a little bit over 4 years. I actually just made my 4-year anniversary on my separate channel, which I talk about on here from time to time. But on this particular channel, we're breaking down everything with regards to being a content creator, the ups, the downs, the algorithm, strategy, how to grow, all of that. So if you guys enjoy that type of content, make sure to subscribe. But for today, we're talking about 5 things that I've noticed that many creators will have to deal with and battle with when it comes to taking content outside of just being a hobby into a full-time gig, a full-time job. And so the first thing I want to talk about is the pressure to perform. As a content creator, you will be under an immense amount of stress, and that's because you're a public figure, right? Whether you've got 100 subscribers or 1,000,000 subscribers, you're putting yourself out there where your face is plastered on the internet, where the viewer's face is not, right? And so I think that's part of why we've seen this culture where people have been super outspoken online and have been really bold where in times past they wouldn't, or in person they wouldn't be, right? I'm talking about from the viewer's perspective, but from the creator's perspective, you will be under an immense amount of pressure to perform. And that comes with, an impact on your mindset, on your mental health. We've seen big creators like Kai Cenat recently talk about mental health. Obviously he's a streamer, very well known. I want to say 5 million subscribers on Twitch. And even he was having mental health issues, right? And people looking from the outside in might say, well, it's easy for him, to have a perfect life and it should be easy for him. But when you have that many people who rely on you constantly, there is a pressure to perform. There's a pressure to always have good ideas, to always be entertaining, to always be educating, to always be providing value. And that can become stressful. And so you have to really work hard to manage that. And you always have to be in the mindset of, what can I do to continue growing? What do I have to do to continue keeping people's attention? At the end of the day, that's what YouTube is all about. That's what content is all about, is providing value, but also bringing people to a particular platform, whether that's YouTube, whether that's Twitch, Kick, Instagram, Facebook, whatever. These platforms, their goal is to bring as many people to their channel, or to their platform, I should say, to do whatever it is that they provide, right? Whether that's marketplace, content, just whatever it is. So that's the first thing I wanted to talk about, is the constant pressure to perform and how that can really impact creators. And the fact that viewers don't really ever think about that, right? Because they're on the other side, they're in the other seat. The second thing I want to talk about is the stress of the algorithm. So at the end of the day, when you're a creator, there are back-end analytics that you're constantly having to deal with. These range from impressions to click-through rate, to retention, to watch time. There are so many different pieces, especially within YouTube, that you have to be mindful of, that as a creator, again, it adds a lot of stress. So you start to constantly check your YouTube analytics. I actually released a video talking about how that can be psychologically addicting in a sense, right? Where it's similar to, gambling in a casino. It's similar to social media, where you're constantly checking and refreshing to see how many people liked, engaged, commented, hearted, whatever you want to call it. And that is another piece of the puzzle, where you have to really balance yourself as a creator between a healthy obsession with wanting to get better and a straight up addiction to making content itself. And if you're not careful, you can fall into this trap where you want to make content, and you make content and you enjoy it genuinely, but you're doing it because you're seeking that next dopamine hit. And so when your content does well, you want more of that, and so you make more content. But when your content doesn't do so well, you obviously feel depressed, sad, and you want to make another video to kind of make up for it because you think that the next one will be better than the one that just kind of flopped. And so it's a double-edged sword. Content can be very, very rewarding if you do it properly. But I think that as creators, we have to take more time to check in with ourselves to make sure that it's not impacting us negatively, and that when we do find ourselves in a state where content is beginning to have an impact on us, it's beginning to stress us out, it's beginning to put a strain on relationships, that we are able to take a break and that we are able to recharge. Because at the end of the day, nobody can do this forever without taking a break. Again, Kai Cenat, I think, was a big example most recently. But even creators like Mr. Beast have talked about, taking things a little bit slowly, but also being sort of in love with analytics. Like, that's what Mr. Beast did for his first 4 or 5 years on YouTube. He was just trying to figure out the algorithm and exactly what YouTube wanted, which at the end of the day is attention. If you're able to keep people on the platform, you're able to get their attention, YouTube will reward you with views. So the next thing I want to talk about when it comes to the realities and the cost of what it takes to become a creator is you have to deal with comparison. For a lot of people, they can't handle that. And what I mean by that is you're going to be coming onto a platform where there are hundreds, if not thousands, of other creators doing the same exact thing that you're doing, yet you're trying to stand out and show your audience why you're better than everybody else. And so that comes at a cost, because you will inevitably see other people that are not only doing the same thing that you're doing, but potentially doing it better than you're doing. And so you have to realize you may not be the best, and that's okay. But as long as you're showing up every day, as long as you're working to become better, provide content in a different way than everybody else, people will see the value, and the people that resonate with you in particular, because they like your personality, because they like your smile, because they like the way you talk, because they feel like they can relate to you because of something else, those people will come to you over whoever else is in your specific niche. So don't be discouraged. I doubt that there's anybody on YouTube that's the only person in a particular niche. Every niche has competition, and I am a strong believer that competition does breed the best quality. And that applies in every aspect of life, right? When you have competitors, they keep you on your toes, and they keep you having to push. And so as creators, it's no different. When you know that you have other people making content just like you are, you have to figure out, okay, either I'm going to just put in more work, or I'm going to do something different that allows for me to stick out and to gain an advantage. Now, that advantage has to be done in a way where it is ethical, right? I definitely don't condone cheating or putting other people down in order to get an advantage. But that is something that you'll definitely have to deal with as a creator, is comparing yourself to other creators. And sometimes you might see that other creators are growing faster than you are. And then you maybe ask yourself, well, why am I not growing that quickly? What's wrong with me, or what's wrong with my channel? And it may not be that anything is wrong. It might just be that they've put in 500 more reps. And when I'm talking about reps, I'm talking about videos than you have. It might be that they've grown on another platform and already have a captive audience that's now migrating with them over into YouTube. There are hundreds of potential reasons as to why somebody else might be growing faster than you are. And at the end of the day, you just have to be mindful that everybody has their own journey. Not everyone's going to blow up on YouTube. But if you're doing something out of genuine passion, you hopefully won't get tired of it and will be doing it because it's a passion, not necessarily because you want to be better than anybody else or because you want to get paid more than somebody else, right? But over time, as a byproduct of your passion, people will see that and people will support that, whether that's financially, emotionally, physically, whatever you want to, put in there. But that's something that I wanted to highlight. So moving into number 4, I want to talk about creative burnout, which is something that a lot of creators, including myself, have felt. And that's when you just get to a point where you kind of have like a writer's block, right? Where you create content for so long, you start to get idea fatigue. You start to just get tired of, the grind. And it's something that a lot of creators, again, don't talk about because it happens behind the scenes. A lot of people don't realize how many hours creators have to put into content before it actually ever even hits YouTube or whatever platform they're posting on. You're talking about an hour or so for scripting, another hour or 2 for actually shooting the video, depending on how many takes you have. If you've made mistakes like I have, you've got to record videos 3 or 4 times. There's going to be some days where you record a video and you forget that the mic was off, or you forget that you were low on memory and halfway through it stops recording, whatever the case is. And these are things that just accumulate over time and begin to cause that creator fatigue, which again leads me to remind you guys that you will have to take breaks on this path or on this journey, and that's completely okay. But that is a reality that a lot of people don't talk about, is that creators get tired just like everybody else. You take a look at somebody who has a catalog of 2,000 or 3,000 videos. That isn't built up overnight. That's built up through consistency, and that's built up through 3, 4, 5 years of time. But in those 3 or 4 or 5 years, you do have to take a break. It's like a traditional job, right? Where you work for, 11 months out the year, and then in that 11 months or in that year, you accumulate some time off that you want to take for a vacation. And so I do genuinely believe that creators also have to adopt a very similar mindset where they need to be willing to take some time off, take some breaks, to refresh, to recharge, and to come back fresh with new ideas. When you're writing an English paper, at least when I was writing my English papers, I would hit these writer's blocks and I would sit there and try to force, and nothing would come to mind. I just couldn't find the right words. Obviously now you can use AI to come up with all the words, but back in the day we didn't have AI. Anyway, you would take a break, you would go eat some food or whatever the case is, and you would come back and all of a sudden the right idea would just be right there. And so I think the same applies to content. When you're fatigued, you've got to take that break. And as you come back, you'll find that natural passion, and hopefully those ideas start flowing again. The very last thing I want to talk about when it comes to the reality and the cost of being a creator is the always on mindset. And what that means is that your life begins to revolve around content if that's genuinely what you're looking to do. If that's genuinely what you want to become as a creator, your life begins to revolve around that. And so you don't see YouTube or any other content platform like a consumer does. You see it from a creator's perspective. And so you're constantly on the hunt for new ideas. You're constantly on the hunt for how you can change your videos, how you can tweak your videos, how you can optimize your videos. When you watch other people's content, you're using those as ways to change how you think about how you can deliver content. And unfortunately, you can't turn this off because, again, your mind has sort of shifted to think about everything as content. Again, I've gone through this, and it's been both a blessing and sometimes a curse, because there are times where I want to just tune out and enjoy content for content, watching whether it's shows on TVs or other people on YouTube. But it's like with this mindset, you find it really hard to watch or enjoy other content without thinking about how that also ties to your actual job, because you too are a content creator. And so it's not to say that it's bad to always be thinking about how to improve, but you have to be mindful that you don't let that steal the joy from everything else that you are doing, and that when you are taking breaks, that you're not just constantly thinking about your content, how to improve the algorithm, your views, your engagement, all of that, And so that will do it here for today's video. I want to just briefly talk about those 5 things. We talked about the pressure to perform, the stress from the algorithm, comparisons with others, creative burnout, and the always on or the worker's mindset. And so if you guys have found this to be helpful, I would appreciate it if you guys enjoy some of the more casual videos. I do enjoy these myself. I'm able to get out, catch a few minutes walking, and just kind of talk to you guys. Let me know down below. I'll keep these coming. But that said, let me know if you guys agree with this, if you guys have gone through this yourselves, and what your guys' thoughts are. Again, feedback is welcome. If you want more, consider subscribing, and of course, don't forget to smash that like on the way out. All right, guys, see you on the next one.